Welcome everyone to the concession stand here on the KB Radio Network. I am your host, Kevin Reed, and this is the review of Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. And this is the sequel to Den of Thieves, which came out in 2018 that starred Gerard Butler and O'Shea Jackson Jr. They reprised their roles in this sequel that follows Gerard Butler's character of Big Nick, who is a Los Angeles Sheriff's Department sheriff who follows a suspected thief to Europe in an attempt to team up with him for a robbery. This is, as I stated before, the sequel to Den of Thieves that nobody asked for. Let's be honest, nobody asked for the sequel to Den of Thieves. Even though Den of Thieves caught a lot of people off guard, me included, I enjoyed that film. I like to describe Den of Thieves as Heat, a poor man's Heat. It's like, I'm not going to say low budget because that would be kind of poo-pooing on the film. It's just a smaller version of Heat. But it was good. It separated itself from that film. It wasn't a carbon copy of Heat by no stretch of the imagination, but I actually enjoyed that film. That film had some heart. That film had some really good action in it. The performances were fairly decent in that movie. I mean, it truly caught me off guard. One of Gerard Butler's best films as far as his acting is concerned. And I'm a huge fan of Gerard Butler. I think he's a very underrated actor. If given the right role, he can really act. He's not just this generic action star, and it really shined in Den of Thieves. And so we get to Den of Thieves 2, and okay, are we going to up the ante? Well, let me just say, if you enjoyed Den of Thieves from 2018, you'll enjoy the sequel from 2025. It's not reinventing the wheel, as they say. It's nothing that's gonna be like, oh my God, this is tour de force here. No, it's nothing like that. It's a decent film. Gerard Butler gives another good performance as this character. I really enjoyed him in this movie. It once again showcased his acting ability. It's not just Gerard Butler running around like a manic crazy man trying to find O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s criminal character, but there's more to his character. There are layers there, and Gerard Butler does an excellent job of displaying all of that. He's a flawed character, a tortured character. He's going through so much in his personal life, in his professional life, and he's in this existential crisis right now. And he's just he's a man searching for a path, and it's a cool journey that he goes on in this film that I really, really enjoyed. That's pretty much the anchor of this film, his character and the journey that he goes on. O'Shea Jackson Jr. is really good in this movie. He's better in this film than he was in the first film. And I enjoyed his character in the first film, but this is such a different character that he played in the first film, yet the same. You still have the nuances that he carried over into this film, but this is a more mature character, a more driven character. I really enjoyed his performance. Putting those two together, the chemistry between these two actors were spot on perfect. I bought it. I bought the relationship. I bought the fact that they are essentially enemies. And I also bought that when they turned and they actually became friends, partners in this robbery, in this heist that was about to take place and the planning that was involved and all that they went through together, I bought it. You know, it felt like a real friendship, a real partnership. And at the end of the film, it was earned what we got at the end of this film between these two characters. It was really, that was really well done in this film. If you're going into this movie, you know, expecting a turn your brain off, just action film, I'm sorry to, I'm sorry to inform you, you're not going to get that. There's really no action in this movie. This is a true heist film, a heist. The planning, the execution of the heist, and that's pretty much it. You know, you maybe get one or two small little action sequences in the film, but nothing that would categorize it as an action movie. There's no action in this movie. It's it's a heist film, and it is fine, you know, because I really went into this. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't know what to expect from the first film. And so I went into that kind of blind and I was surprised. There's a lot more action in that first film. I mean, way more action in that first film. And that first film is not what you would consider a quote unquote action movie, but there's more action in it. This film, little to none, but it is still an intriguing film. My flaws in this film, the biggest flaw, first off the bat, this movie is over 2 hours long, and it is too long. This movie was too long. At one point, I would say in the middle, like around the hour 15-minute mark, I went to check in my watch. I was like, man, how much more do we have in this movie? You know, in some of the stuff in there I was enjoying. You know, it wasn't like I was bored per se, but I was like, okay, when we going to get to the meat? We eating all of the vegetables on the side, you know, the broccoli and the mashed potatoes. When are we getting to the steak? And it took a while to get to the steak. This movie was way too long. They could have shaved off 15, maybe even 20 minutes, and it would have been perfect, you know, but it just drug. It drug. Now, when I say it could have shaved off 15, 20 minutes, it's hard for me to pinpoint right now where they can shave it off at, because it's a lot of explaining. There's a lot of planning that is going into this heist, and everything that was laid out for you was leading up to this heist. And so you needed all of this information, but it was just a lot. It was a lot, but it wasn't too much to whereas it was overcomplicating and you were lost. Like, what are they talking about? What is this? What did that mean? What are they doing here? It was none of that. It was just a lot of information being thrown at you for about an hour and 15 minutes stretch of the film. But, you know, that was my biggest flaw. My other flaws was the end. You know, the ending, even though the wrap up, quote unquote, between Gerard Butler's character and O'Shea Jackson Jr.'s character was an earned kind of a ending, I didn't like the ending, you know. And I really can't dive in it too much without spoiling the film for those of you who haven't seen it yet. But it is kind of like, oh, come on, man, this is silly. We went through all that for this, you know. It was just unsatisfying, to put it plainly, all in the service of trying to set up a Den of Thieves 3, I guess you could say. And I'm like, okay, I see where they're going with this, but yeah, it was just kind of clunky at the end how they wrapped up this portion of the story, I should say. My other flaw, which is my last flaw, in the first Den of Thieves, you had a relationship with the crew. You had a relationship with 50 Cent's character, with Pablo Schreiber's character, and all the rest of the guys in the crew. You know, those Den of Thieves, and the impact of the loss of those individuals were felt in that film because you grew a relationship. It was somebody to get behind, even though they were the quote unquote bad guys. You could still get behind them, you know, because you understood where they came from. The characters were flushed out, and you know, it was felt when they met the end. You know, met their end, I should say, at the end of that film. Here in part two, the actual Den of Thieves, the Panther crew, I think that's what they're called. They, I had no relationship with them. There was no connection with them, and there was no, I felt nothing, you know. And when the end results came, I felt nothing because I wasn't connected to those characters at all. We didn't get any flushed out backstories with them. You didn't get any motivations from them. You just knew that they were a bunch of thieves, and that was it. It was nothing to cheer for, you know. In this film, you really had no one to cheer for. Even Gerard Butler's character, you know, throughout the film, you really couldn't cheer for him, you know, because he kind of turned to the dark side, even though, you know, you kind of knew that he wasn't really fully turned to the dark side, but it just didn't, I didn't buy it. But it didn't make me want to cheer for his character. There really wasn't a protagonist here. There wasn't a hero here. Everybody in here was a criminal. Even though the end of this film give us a quote unquote hero, I didn't like how we got to his hero moment, but it is what it is. But overall, Den of Thieves 2, I think, is a pretty good film. It's not horrible. It's up there with the first one. You know, if you, like I said, if you enjoyed the first film, you'll enjoy the second film. You know, it's a worthy successor, I guess you could say. Den of Thieves 2, Pantera, gets a letter grade of a C plus. Yeah, it's a pretty decent movie. It's worth a watch. I'll say that much. If you want to complete the series with these two films, yeah, go ahead and check it out. Go ahead and check it out. If for anything, Gerard Butler, I think, man, if Gerard Butler would have started his career in the mid '90s or something like that, he would have been bigger than what he is right now. Gerard Butler is still a big name. He's still a good big star. He opens up movies. This movie, I think, opened up at #1 his opening weekend. So it's not like he is you know, straight to video type actor. He opens up movies. That movie last year that came out, Plane was another movie that was like a throwaway little action movie with him and Michael Collier. Was pretty good. Caught me off guard. Pretty good. Greenland, which he was in a couple of years back. Pretty good. You know, he has a really good filmography. If you ever sit back and look at his movies, really good, solid films. So, yeah, I think he's one of the last action stars, and it's kind of hard to say that now because this isn't an action film. But I know a lot of people are going to categorize it as one. But yeah, go see it for his performance. This is a really good performance by him and old Shea Jackson Jr., old Ice Cube Jr. himself. I think they did an excellent job in this film. But I would love to know, have you checked out Den of Thieves 2? Did you enjoy it? Do you plan to check it out? If you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. Email the show, kbradiopodcast@gmail.com. You can also search for the show on all social media platforms. Just search for the KB Radio Network. Also, don't forget about YouTube. Subscribe to the KB Radio Network channel on YouTube and like this video, please. Also, don't forget about the 5 stars, the reviews, and sharing this show. If you're listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, wherever you are currently listening to the Concession Stand here on the KB Radio Network. Everybody, thank you for joining me for this review of Den of Thieves 2 Pantera. Want you all to know that I love you. Continue to love everyone. And until we speak again, you all be blessed.